What's up, guys and girls? Today we're going to address a few questions in the short span of a 10 to 20 minute video. Now obviously I can only hit it on a general level given the time span of this video, but I think it'll give you a very extensive answer nonetheless, although not perfect. So I'm going to be addressing a few questions such as, why do guys cheat on girls so often, or why do girls go after these assholes, or date assholes, or end up constantly getting these guys who cheat on them, and then after that happens they find another guy who does the same thing. And more questions on the flip side. When you flip the two genders, it's the same sort of thing. How come certain guys go after these philanderous girls who cheat on them or do other stuff that's just terrible? And I'm going to address this as well as I can. First off, I don't think that everyone does it, and to even say the majority of people do it, I think that's going a little far myself. I don't think it's that widespread. And here's the real thing. Why follow the crowd in such a way, even if you do claim it to be the majority? You are your own person who can think, and I think everyone, as soon as they start believing in themselves and believing that they can choose to control who they are, they can take steps to do something that the crowd doesn't do. Like, you don't have to follow the crowd, and you can whine about this all you want, but that's not going to get you anywhere. It's better to just work on what you can change, which is yourself, and choose not to follow that sort of thing with your partners. And make sure you choose partners that are good, because there's definitely good people out there who do not follow this. You just have to be, you just have to really analyze someone before it happens. Having said that huge disclaimer, I'm going to bust the lid, because in all honesty, you can't really blame a lot of these people for it. And a lot of them are simply hardwired to it, because a lot of people do not use their brains. Like, they don't. They literally are following what their bodies have been hardwired to react to from birth. And it's all these evolutionary behaviors that are hardwired into them that they don't have to even think about or decide before their body sort of reacts to them automatically. And so, yeah, there's a lot of these people who are literally just acting on emotions or behaviors. And emotions are a huge one, because that is one of the major things that causes someone to literally perform behaviors and actions and decisions without any sort of actual thought. It's all just automatically programmed into you from your genetic DNA. And it's helped us in the past, which is why we have them evolutionarily. Those who develop these sort of traits survived. But as I've explained in my videos on evolution, our current day and age has been changing so rapidly that not everything we've evolved to and adapt to can suit our new environment. And because of that, we're doing all sorts of stuff that are hurting us, and it's just a side effect of us changing our environment so quickly. Evolution was not meant to change species that quickly, and it shouldn't, because looking at a 100,000 year time span, if you screw up something or you change too quickly, you can very well wipe out a species. So there's a reason why evolution is so slow, and therefore we're still pretty much adapted towards the times 10,000, maybe 20,000 years ago, not to our current modern environment. And so, to be a little bit more concrete, think about it like this. A lot of people are stupid, but you can be smarter than that. You can think, you can work on reducing your emotions and thinking and preventing yourself from acting on impulse before something happens. And that's the general thing in a nutshell, although one could argue it can get more complex, but in reality I feel like that's all you really need to know, and just work from there. You don't have to complicate things that don't need to be complicated. Literally just work on that. And if you're one of those people who cheats on others and it literally is something you can't control, there's two things you can do, and I think you should do both. One, if it's really that bad, you have to realize that you are not in a time in your life where you can settle down with one person, and you have to address that and stop trying to, settle for monogamy when you know you're going to cheat. Do yourself a courtesy. And there are people like that. There are people I know who are like that. They're just, one could argue, either really good with women, or just their abundance and how they are as humans allow them to be in a situation where they can literally they're almost programmed for polygamy, which is true, because apparently males were polygamous back in the day, and this monogamy thing is new for males, not for females. So it's a strange sort of thing. In addition to all this though, think about why we have these sort of things where we act on impulse. It comes from 20,000, 10,000, 5,000 years ago. For males, anger is obviously something that shows a lot more oftentimes. Anger can definitely save you, especially when something happens and you are being attacked in the wilderness, you're hunting something, and a lot of emotions have helped you survive and / or reproduce. And jealousy, that's another one. Why is there jealousy? To prevent someone else's traits being passed to your offspring. That jealousy puts out a sort of, wariness, so that you make sure that you're not raising some other girl or some other male's children for the next 20 years of your life to only pass on traits that are not even yours. And it all goes back to that whole biological end purpose of every species: survival and reproduction. And what you find is that the organisms who are more jealous tended to be more wary and cautious with their mates, thus allowing them to survive and reproduce more with their own offspring, thus passing their own traits down for jealousy. And that sort of builds over time to what we currently know as our form of jealousy, which can get pretty hectic. Having said that though, obviously all these traits in our modern age are pretty, they're not terrible. There's this saying going out there, like, if you're jealous, it just means that you're insecure in yourself. 100%. There's no other reason. So jealousy is just a flaw in yourself. So rid yourself of that. And I don't think that's true. Sure, I respect it a lot. A lot of people are severely insecure with themselves, and they don't believe that the girl or the husband they have is truly something that they deserve, and therefore they're super jealous, which freaks them out. And then typically it's with like a girlfriend or boyfriend. The girlfriend or boyfriend gets weirded out, realizes this girl or guy has really low self-esteem, and just ends the relationship. I have to tip my hat to that, but I don't think jealousy in itself is 100% a bad thing. I think a certain amount of wariness has evolutionarily helped us as a species. And so, just to end and conclude and wrap up all of this, the whole idea though is most people act on impulse. A great majority of our earth is still comprised of very uneducated people. The average person, whether you're thinking American, or even a Chinese person, like it or not, or a Indian person, Japanese person, the average person, although they're getting smarter, they are still typically not like the most amazing intellectual person who can logically prepare something and stop their emotions from leaking out and thinking before they act on their emotions. And that's obviously something that you have to first be aware of. So having watched this video until now, you're now aware of it to a certain extent. The second thing is literally working on it, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, to develop these skills to accomplish this. And from there you will find that a lot of these people can solve their issues if they do this sort of thing, whether it's, you know, cheating or doing something stupid at a social event, or being very insecure and jealous and acting out in rage, or being very temperamental and punching someone in the face, or something more simplistic. Again, back to the assholes who these girls date, or the constant cheating that goes on either gender. When you think about it, it all comes back to evolution, emotions taking control without them really thinking about it. And what ultimately happens for most people who don't really realize what's going on and are literally acting on their biological pre-programmed evolutionary behaviors is that they backwards rationalize from there. So after they've acted on these emotions, they backwards rationalize and convince themselves logically of why they did certain things, whether or not it's true. Most of the time it may not be. So a clear example is cheating. Another clear example is just doing something stupid, or doing something sexual with someone that you didn't want to, whether it's because of a professional situation, or because you didn't like that person, or it would have looked bad on your reputation somehow, but you still ended up doing it. And they backwards rationalize multiple, like a numerous amount of ways to sort of figure this out. And I think, again, there's a lot of human flaws to a lot of systems like this. Again, there's like I was reading up on like people who do it for stocks. So they pick a stock and it goes down the drain and they lose a lot of money. Same thing with gambling. There's apparently a million psychological mechanisms that will sort of trick your mind into thinking that, oh, it wasn't that bad, or oh, I was right all along. It happens all the time with gambling, or and a lot of other things. They're called like confirmation bias, hindsight bias, all these different psychological things. And it's one of these, all these flaws in humans that are innately programmed in us, that sort of distort scientific data unless we are aware of it and we account for it. And a lot of people, most people, unless they're scientists, they don't bother. They just fall into it without realizing it. And so ultimately what I'm saying here is emotions do play a huge part in a lot of these things. And again, some of these guys or girls, mostly guys, I feel like, know it to a certain extent, either unconsciously or consciously, and they naturally sort of exploit it. They will exploit or use, I wouldn't necessarily say exploit, they don't always exploit it, but they use these sort of emotions knowing this, and these sort of things end up happening, and they end up cheating. Now, is this the end of the world? Not at all. Ultimately, you know, if you are one of those people literally complaining about this, and you are like, it's the end of the world, no one is safe from this, I only picture you as one of two people. The first person is one of those people who deep down want to stay in this sort of scenario, want to stick around with these people, and ultimately will stay in that scenario. Why? Because either they deep down truly like it, although they complain about it all the time, and they could like it for various reasons, such as those are the type of people that they like, or that they enjoy. despite the fact that they cheat and they don't want any other type of person. And all I have to say about that is, like, you're ultimately, you kind of have to accept it, or or just wait until you are mature enough to move on. And then the other possibility is that you're just not realizing that there's a bigger world. There's different types of people out there who are not like this. Think of successful people: Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle Obama. Think of Will Smith and his wife, or his second wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. Think of these successful people. Obviously, they'll go through their ups and downs, but ultimately, they have very strong relationships, no cheating. They're upstanding people, very successful people. Oprah and her husband, and so forth. Many of these people, surprisingly, all the examples I've listed are for some reason African American, but you get the point. A white example, I would say Jimmy Fallon and his wife, Jimmy Kimmel and his wife. These are successful people who have kept a monogamous relationship without philanderous cheating. So when you compare those to the types of people you are complaining about and the lifestyle you live, you can kind of realize where you're coming from. I feel like a lot of people complaining about this stuff, all the guys are assholes, they're cheating. They are the people who go to tons of parties, maybe do drugs, maybe they live a philanderous lifestyle. They're not really that successful at anything, but maybe they're good looking or very popular in school or so forth. And you kind of have to get out of that bubble and maybe steer clear and go to a different sort of setting. Maybe change yourself, get a job or a major or concentration school like engineering, something upstanding or in white collar and more formal and narrow. And when you surround yourself with these sort of successful people that are different from your initial crowd of that philanderous the philanderous crowd who's constantly at bars, whose their whole lifestyle and culture is around partying and drinking and cheating on others, you can definitely change. If you're around a different set of people, then you won't be complaining about this sort of stuff. And if you're not willing to go there, one could argue, hey, you kind of want to stay there. And I'll get into another video about how even that has many ties to evolutionary hardwiring. A lot of these females who are attracted to all these guys who like cheating and so forth, like them for these sort of unique, one-of-a-kind behavioral traits that alpha males had back in the day, and that's why they're attracted to these sort of people, because that attraction allowed them to survive and reproduce. So that's all I want to say ultimately. And so I hope you guys get the idea. Ultimately, you either change crowds, work on how you think, work on who you choose as a partner, and that's ultimately what you can do to sort of avoid cheating or avoid people who cheat. And if you can't do that, you have to ultimately think, is this truly what I want? And I personally think that there are people who embody all these qualities you have without the cheating going on, but it's probably in a different lifestyle and culture than you're used to, and you may not be able to get to that setting or that different group of people surrounding you easily. And so you really have to think about it. And if you ultimately want it, you will go out and try and achieve that new thing. Otherwise, stick to the bars and parties and stop complaining about it. And that sort of lifestyle is what you like. That's all I really want to say. As always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video.